All right. Well, welcome to the Plague, and thank you for taking the time to answer some questions for us.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for your interest in the band.
My first question is just about the new album. It's been 6 years since the last one, and I'm just kind of wondering if you could talk a little bit about that journey and like what kind of difficulties you might have faced along the way.
Well, it's been 6 long years. That's right, and the journey has been has been quite difficult as well. So you got that right. Um, the thing is, we released a previous record, which was called Waves of Annihilation, in 2016, and it was very well received, and the critics were saying that it was the best record we'd ever done, etc. So we were really moving forward with the record, and then the drummer quit, and then the singer quit, and we had to look for a new lineup, basically. The thing is that we've always been a band that likes to play live as much as we can,
Mm.
and some of the other guys, as you grow older, sometimes it's just not really convenient to be away from home all the time or that much. So it was a decision they made, and we had to deal with it. But of course, it slowed us down as a band,
Yeah.
and it took quite some time to find the right guys to step in. And when we finally did, we played some shows, but nothing really spectacular. It was just trying to get the band going again, and we started writing and etc. And so we decided, okay, let's take a year off to write the new album. And then after that year, just when we were ready to start playing again, then the whole Corona disaster happened, so that we had to wait for another 2 years. And before you know it, 6 years have gone by. But now we're here. The album is out. We have a tour coming up. There's shows lined up. Everything is more or less back to normal here in Europe. So we're ready to go again.
Awesome. So Mike's vocals are they feel like they're a lot more melodic and a lot more. He has a pretty broad range with his voice. What does he bring to the table, and as far as you're concerned, and how's it changed the songwriting?
Well, it didn't really change the writing in itself, because we're mainly writing on guitar, really, puzzling pieces together with guitars and drums. That's how it starts most of the time. But when Mike joined, we knew that he was capable of singing all the old stuff without any problem. But soon enough, we realized that he could do a lot more, and that's what we decided to use to use its full potential on the new record. So it's true that we have covered a lot of ground here that we didn't cover before on previous records. And it's basically because Mike has the talent and the ability to bring that extra melody and harmony to the table, which is quite unexpected for some people in this type of speed metal, thrash metal style. And it seems kind of, I won't say uncomfortable, but at least unexpected to some people to hear this style of melodic voice that you would expect in maybe, the style is like you'd say Iron Maiden or Queensryche or bands like that, which are heavy metal, but very melodic. And so we found a way to combine those two, and I think it's very interesting. It has broadened our sound quite a bit, and it opened up new possibilities for us to try new things, especially when we're talking about harmonies and playing with melodic guitars and vocals that go together that we've never done before.
Yeah.
So it's been really interesting. And now it's interesting to see how people react to it, because for some people it's quite a shock, because we could have chosen a totally different singer and chosen a totally different path. I mean, someone with a really, we could have chosen someone in the style of, say, Zetro or Chuck from Testament or people like that. But no, we chose a different path, and it's quite interesting to see the response to that.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, there's so many thrash bands that have kind of gone with the more gruff, sort of vocals, and it's kind of interesting to hear you guys that are taking this different path. And it reminds me a lot of some of the more 80s, like the earlier thrash bands, back when it wasn't such an established genre, like there were bands like Flotsam and Jetsam and Anthrax that had like very melodic vocals. So
yes, absolutely. And those are the bands that we appreciate as musicians as well. And that's the stuff that we grew up on. Now, Flotsam and Jetsam, as you said, Agent Steel, Toxic, all those bands were very, thrash metal, very, very fast paced, but still with a lot of melody and with great singers.
Yeah, for sure. As far as the album title, EOS, I had to look up the meaning behind it. I didn't know what it was. So I'm kind of curious what prompted that? Where did that come from? And if you can talk a little bit about the album art cover artwork. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. Well, it's a question we get a lot because it's not a very common word, obviously. But Eos is in ancient history and like Greek mythology is the goddess of daybreak, the goddess of dawn, the new day. So it's like the symbol for new beginnings. And so we could have chosen a really stupid title for the record, like say New Beginning or This is the New Lineup and stuff like that. Which we did not, obviously. We chose EOS, but it means the same thing. So it's basically just us saying, hey, here's a new beginning. It's been a long time since we've made a record. The band's been completely new. There's a different angle to the music. So it is a different, it's a new start, really. So that's where the idea comes from. And then we also wanted to do something new with the artwork because the previous records as I said, we were and still are really into the whole 80s speed metal, thrash metal vibe. So it was so cool to have Ed Repka design the previous album covers for us because it really connected us to all those bands that we loved in the 80s. But since this is really a new start for the band, we thought, okay, it's time for something new on that field as well. So we have been in touch with Travis Smith, who's of course a phenomenal designer in metal as well. We totally loved the stuff he did for Nevermore and Death and all those bands. And it felt like we had been talking with him over the years, but it really felt that this was the right time to get him on board and have him design something around that idea of a new beginning. So we sort of brainstormed together, and we came up with this idea of the morning star, which is the ultimate symbol of the new day, new beginning. Every day it is a new day. So the morning star is the central piece in the art, and then we added all sorts of elements that reflect the same idea of new beginnings. Like the tree of life is on there, and there's an egg, which is like a very ancient symbol of new life. There's that beetle. I don't know the name in English. The beetle, that's always also the symbol of Journey, the band, which is like the Egyptian beetle that is symbol for new life.
Scarab.
Yes, exactly that, the scarab. So all those elements are like little details in the artwork. And when you have the CD, it's especially the Morning Star that stands out. But when you have the LP or the vinyl version on big format, then all these details come out, and that's so great about working with Travis, that he has such a sense for little details and stuff, and that also reminds me of being a 16-year-old. Long time ago, sitting in my bedroom and looking at record covers the Maiden records, etc., and discovering all these little things on there, and that's so cool about it.
Yeah, I love that, especially with a cover like that, where, like you said, at the CD size, you kind of have one focal point, but then having the full art, you can like really kind of focus in on and discover these things as time goes by. You guys started out at a really interesting time for a thrash band, because it was right around the time that the scene was like really kind of being, buried by death metal and black metal and everything else. So what were the 90s like for you guys? Was it a real struggle, or?
It was different because we, as you said, we started out at a really young age. I mean, I think we were only 15 or 16 when we really started playing and trying out, to play instruments and be a band. And that was like around 87, 88, 89, something like that. But then soon after that, the whole death metal thing exploded. And it wasn't only that, it was also vinyl that was like killed off by CDs.
Right.
So in 92, we released our first EP, and we made a tragic error to release it on 7-inch vinyl, which was a format that at the time literally nobody wanted anymore. So that made it extra hard to sort of go somewhere with the band. It's true, the 90s were pretty brutal, especially I think the first half of it. The band was not really very active at the time. I think we made the first album that we made was in 95, and it wasn't the speed or thrash metal at all at the time. When that wasn't the music that was on there. We sort of, we carved our own path, sort of. We looked for our own way, and then we developed bit by bit. I think the second record, which was like 97 or something, was more in the direction of heavy metal, and then the songs got a little faster, and then we had some doomy stuff on there as well, some very melancholic stuff as well. And then I think by the turn of the millennium, then things got better here for the metal scene as well, and that reflected in our music, and it got heavier and it got faster, and ever since, I think the Mercury record, which is like a fourth record, is like what we see is it's really the start of how the style of the band is now. That's the first three records. Yeah, it's like a band which is searching for its identity and trying out different stuff. Still heavy, but not always thrash metal, and definitely not fast. But then from the fourth record on, I think we sort of found or realized what we're good at and what we really feel we should play as musicians, and which is obviously the music we grew up with. I mean, we realized that there's no point in trying to be something you're not. I mean, there's no point in trying to play something because it's popular or people expect it from you. You only, you play best what you feel best, or what you are, and that's the stuff we grew up with, and that's heavy metal, and that's speed metal, and it's thrash metal, and that's it. So we never felt the urge to play death metal or black metal, because that's not who we are.
Yeah.
Although I like the music.
Right.
But it's just not us. I mean, I couldn't play it.
Is there any plans to reissue any of those earlier albums? Because I was looking at it, it looks like none of your previous albums are in print, or at least have been reprinted in recent times. So
no, I don't know if it would make sense. I mean, if the new record really takes off and we sell like 100,000 copies, then probably someone will have the bright idea to try and reprint some of that stuff. But at this point, not really. We don't play any of that stuff anymore live as well. I wouldn't go as far as to compare it to the Pantera situation, where they were sort of like embarrassed about their first 3 or 4 records and never even wanted them mentioned anywhere officially, and definitely not reprinted. I wouldn't go as far as that. I mean, we're proud of everything we've done and of every record we did, but I don't see a point really at this, at the moment to have them reprinted. Who knows, in 10 years or something? I don't know. But right now, it's not. I don't see a point really.
What about like the more recent ones, like Mercury Rising onward?
Yeah, that would be cool. Most of the vinyls, at least, are sold out there. So yeah, we get some questions from people from time to time, and I see the prices on Discogs and eBay and stuff. So there's some demand. I mean, some people are looking into that. Maybe one day, who knows? It could be an idea, but at the moment, I think we'll just focus on playing the new stuff and creating new material, and we'll see.
Yeah. As far as the next steps, you mentioned something about touring. What do you have lined up, and is there any chance that you guys will ever get over to North America?
Well, it's a good question. We have a number of shows lined up now. It's not really a big tour, but it's like a week. We play in Belgium, Holland, a couple of days in Germany. So it's a small tour with Satan, the new wave of British heavy metal legends, which I totally love and admire. So it's really cool to be back on the road and start off small. I mean, it's small clubs and it's just 1 week, but it will give us a taste of how it is to be on the road again. So we're really looking forward to that. We have a couple of local shows planned here as well, a release party sort of show in our hometown here, which will be special. So we have the band up and running again. That was the whole thing. Mm-hmm. As far as playing the US, that's still. I mean, that's really it's like a hole in the calendar or say we should have like a world map on the wall here with all the little flags of where we've been. Mm-hmm. So it's in almost every European country we have like a pin there, but US for some reason it's never happened. We came close a couple of times, though. There were some little festivals I remember on the West Coast, and it always fell through. And mm-hmm. we're quite good friends with some bands over there, like the guys in Aged Steel at the time, and Armored Saint, and they say, okay, but yeah, we'll invite you when we do a local show, and we came close, but somehow it never materialized until now. So who knows? So if you have a good lead or a good idea, just let us know, because we'd really like to do that. It's one of those things, as a European band, playing the US, playing Japan, that sort of stuff. So it's that we still have that on the to-do list.
Cool. Well, I'd love to see you guys if you ever make it over. Can you talk a little bit about the Belgian metal scene and kind of like what from that inspired you, like in the early days? Because from my perspective here, the only bands I really was aware of back in the 80s were like Acid and Cyclone, Killers. But I'm just kind of curious, like, were you aware of those bands? Were they like a big deal? Was it still pretty an underground thing?
Well, it was underground, definitely. But it was kind of a thing because those were the bands that were around. That was it. And you forgot Ostrogoth.
Oh, yes.
And maybe Crossfire.
Oh, yeah.
So those were like the 4 or 5 bigger names in the 80s. And of course, there was a bunch of small bands that made a 7-inch or just a demo, and it never got any further than that. But the bands you mentioned, it's kind of funny because when we started out, it was in the late 80s, and all of those bands had been over their peaks already, or had stopped, or were were falling apart. And so by the time we started out, Acid wasn't around anymore. I think we saw Cyclone. That was one of the bands. We saw Cyclone in, I think, 87, 88 a couple of times, and they were kind of a big deal, but there wasn't much competition either. So when Metallica came to Belgium and they needed a local support, there was not much choice. So you see, but of course these bands were very popular, and it's interesting to see that now, like 30 or 35 years later, that they really have a sort of international appeal. I mean, all over the world. Acid is from the same city as we, from Bruges, and I know these guys. They are always very much surprised to see how much people in all far countries know Acid and have records, and it's incredible. It's something that they didn't realize at the time. There was something that they didn't know at the time, that their music was spread all over the world. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to see from our perspective how it was then. But back then it was really an underground thing. You didn't see them on TV, or you didn't hear them on radio, and metal shows were really, underground and looked at from a distance as something, you better stay away from.
You mentioned knowing the guys in Acid. I saw that you were involved with their reunion a couple of years back. I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit, what that was like.
I can't really say that much about it. All I can say is that it was really fun and an honor to be invited to be part of it. And it was really fun, and really was into it and really liked doing it until it wasn't. So the whole thing, you've probably seen the messages, the whole thing blew up, and ever since, I mean, I stepped away. I don't have anything to do with all that bullshit that happened there. But as long as I was part of it and things went well, it was fun. I mean, it was great to play that stuff. And the band really rocked hard, man. It was really cool. But then all of a sudden, the same issues resurfaced, like issues that caused the end of the band in 1986 resurfaced, and I didn't want to be any part of that. So that's where it stopped for me.
That's a shame. Yeah, those three albums were so good. I still listen to those pretty regularly. There's something about them they seem so simple, but they're just like such a great song.
That's the whole thing, and it's cool that you mentioned it. It seems really simple and very straightforward and very direct, but wait till you start figuring out what they're doing and how to play it. It's really, you really have to be focused and have your head clear to play that stuff. But when it worked, I mean, it was so good. It's really a shame we never got to play live. It's really a shame.
Yeah. My last question here is a question I've been asking everybody, and that is, if you had to pick one album, maybe your favorite Black Sabbath album of all time, what would it be and why?
I don't even have to think about it. It's Heaven and Hell. It's not just the best Sabbath album. I think it's one of the best albums in the history of the universe. Because I'm totally into Dio, and I'm totally into Tony Iommi, and I guess when the two meet, that's what happened. It's that album is magical from beginning to end, from the very first note to the very last one. And I've heard it so many times, and I still listen to it to this day, and it's never boring. It's still great. So at the same time, did I freeze there for a moment?
You did. It was right about halfway through.
Okay. So you heard me raving about heaven and hell?
Yes.
I also like Tony Martin a lot. Did you hear that?
No.
Okay. I totally love Tony Martin. I think the Tear album, the one with Jerusalem and stuff like that, wow, it's incredible.
I love that album.
Yes, I love it too. And I sort of discovered it by accident because it had been out for quite a bit already. I discovered it in the mid 90s somewhere, a few years after it was out. It was, wow, it was so good. And Sabbath with Ozzy. Yeah, okay, of course. I mean, you gotta love Sabbath, period. But if you say one record, it's Heaven and Hell, no question.
That's very cool. Yeah, that's the time period when I got into him was around 88 1. So that's always been a favorite of mine as well.
Do you keep statistics? I mean, when you say, I ask everyone the same question, do you keep statistics of what's the most favorite Sabbath record?
It's been varied. I think I've heard Heaven and Hell more than any other so far, interestingly. But somebody did pick one of the Tony Martin albums. I can't remember if it was Headless Cross. I think it might have been Headless Cross.
Yeah, which is also incredible.
Yeah.
No doubt. And I've had, I've had the luck of seeing the 3 incarnations of Sabbath live.
Nice.
So I saw them with Ozzy. The first time there was a reunion in '99, I think, and then the last time a couple of years ago. And of course, I saw a Heaven and Hell band.
Yeah.
With Dio several times when they were over here in Europe, and I saw them twice, I think, with Tony Martin, but with the later records. Forbidden, the last word, and the one before that, which was a pretty good one as well.
Oh, Cross Purposes. Yeah.
Cross Purposes, exactly. But interestingly enough, at that time they played here in Belgium, in Brussels, in a relatively small venue. It was like maybe 600 or 700 people. And then, of course, 2 years later was the reunion with Ozzy, and then going back with Dio, etc. Yeah, interesting band, Sabbath.
Yeah, they did so much over such a long period of time, and
true.
So much of it was great.
True.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I think that's all the questions I got, but really appreciate it.
No, my pleasure. Thank you for the interest. I hope my answers answered your question. That's not really articulate. I hope I told you what you wanted to know. If anything comes up, just let me know. And thanks again for the support. It really means a lot, because we haven't done much promotion in the US at all over the last 30 years. So we're glad we can do some of it. So thanks again for helping out the band.
Yeah, no problem. Good luck with the album release and the tour.
All right, thank you. All right, good luck with the show.
All right, take care.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Bye.